Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our live stream here. I'm not sure why the screen isn't green behind me there, but we'll get that figured out. Welcome back. This is the second edition of English 140 EAP, which is English for Academic Purposes. My name is Joshua. I'm a teacher here and the director of the college at Spokane College of English Language in Spokane, Washington, USA. It's a lovely day outside today. It's so sunshiny and nice, and there's a big festival going on in the park where you can eat a bunch of different food, hundreds of restaurants. It's so much fun. Wish you guys were here. But I'm glad you're here right now in the chat, and welcome everybody who is here. It looks like Salim. Hi, how you doing? Eugene Ju. I'm probably saying that name wrong. So correct me if you like. And Rauf, also in Nigeria, it looks like. Welcome. And this class is designed to be English for academic purposes. So what does that mean? Academic purposes is teaching students the fundamentals if you want to study at a university anywhere in the world that uses English as a primary language. So if you want to get your bachelor's degree or master's degree, or even just go to a community college, this is the class for you. We're doing some open free live classes until the 19th, but you can sign up for a closed class and be a regular student if you like. And you will get feedback and information and personalized education from me. So once again, my name is Joshua, and a little bit about myself. I found my way into education through an interesting route. I graduated Eastern Washington University with a creative writing degree and anthropology degree, and then I traveled a bit. And when I came back, I started working in the medical profession. I was a pharmaceutical technician, and I lived and worked in Haiti for a while after the earthquake. And I was a pharmacist down there. So I got to work in a clinic and help people heal. And in the evening hours, my translators wanted to learn more English, so I would teach them English. And I sort of built an impromptu school there. And when I came back here, I found that I loved teaching more than working in medicine. Not just healing bodies, but growing minds and educating. So I wound up doing this, and I've taught for the last 6 years here, and now I'm the director. So I love this job so much, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today and teach this class. This is one of my favorite classes I've ever taught. So I will go ahead and start the lesson for you. I'm going to switch over here. I'm going to get a little bit smaller and down in the corner for you. Here we are. Okay, so this is the lesson that we're going to go over. Yesterday we talked about different types of sentences and how to create those sentences. But today I want to talk about what is the most important sentence of any academic essay. It's called the thesis statement. You see that right here, thesis statement. And I'll tell you that when I was in university as a freshman, taking basic classes, the thesis statement was such a hard thing to understand because I heard the word over and over and over and wasn't quite sure what to think about it. So I'd like to just first define for me what thesis statement is. When I think of a thesis statement, I think of the most important sentence in the entire essay, what your main point is. And one way to think about it is if you use Twitter or Weibo or anything where you only have limited characters, text messages sometimes, you have to choose your words carefully and you have to get to the main point. You have to let your reader, your audience know exactly what you mean as clearly and concisely as possible. So if your phone was about to die and you're having this conversation with a friend and you realize you have to give them all the important information really quickly in a short message, that's what the thesis statement would be. The main point of your entire academic argument. And when I say argument as an academic argument, I don't mean yelling back and forth or arguing with a roommate about who didn't do the dishes. I mean stating your information with evidence and proving your point in your writing. That's the idea of academic writing, is convincing someone why the information you are giving them is correct. And your main point is your thesis statement. So, hello, Anwar. Welcome to the class. And so as we go through here, I want you to remember and keep in mind that the thesis statement is your absolute most important information. And it goes in a specific place in a basic English essay, and we'll go over that in a moment. So the first sentence, as you see in the lesson here, of an introduction of either a lecture or a reading, and a reading, of course, is something that someone wrote. Reading and writing are so interconnected, you cannot have one without the other. If you write something, generally you write it because you want someone to read it. Even if it's your journal or blog, you're going to read it later, so you are the audience. So when anything is written, we keep our reader in mind, and we want to give them the best information possible. And a lecture or a presentation is no different. It's organized in the same way. So when we talk about lectures or presentations or academic essays, they have the same basic format. So the first sentence of an introduction is a general statement that is designed to introduce the broad topic, the main idea, in general, though. The general idea. So are we talking about sports or human rights? Or are we trying to get a law passed or a law eliminated? What is the purpose? So if I was writing about freedom of speech in my country and how important that is, in the USA that's a very big tenet, a big facet of our culture. So if I'm writing about this, I'll just start talking about freedom in my first sentence there to introduce the general idea. And it prepares for the second sentence, the thesis statement, which tells the reader or listener, if it's a presentation or a lecture, what my main point is. We listen and look for examples of general statement and thesis statement from exercises in other lessons that we'll teach in this class. But for now, we're just going to go over what a thesis statement is and how to identify it and how to create a strong, effective thesis statement. So number one here, I'm going to play this short listening and see if you can hear this here.
Number one. How many people here are right-handed? Well, put up your right hand if you are. Okay, that seems to follow the actual average, which says that about 90% of the population has their right hand as their dominant hand. How does being left-handed, part of that minority, affect your life? We'll take a look at how being left-handed has continued to affect people's daily lives, from inconveniences to social problems they may have. After that, we'll discuss some of the reasons why scientists believe left-handedness occurs in the first place.
Okay, so hopefully you heard that all right, and please let me know in the chat if you haven't. We can always replay that again if you need a second listen. The essence of that listening was the majority of the people in the world are right-handed. Now, the majority, 90% is what the listening said, and that's the majority, the bulk, the larger portion of people in the world. Is that the general statement or the thesis statement? I'd like to know, if you're in the chat there, let me know. Do you think that is the general statement or the thesis statement? And while you're thinking about it, I will, sorry, just taking care of something over there. I had some papers in my way. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to read the next sentence here that was in the listening. The listening talks about how people's lives are affected by left-handedness and what some of the causes are. So that's sort of a definition of what we heard. It's describing, it's a summary. So think about that. Is that a general statement or a thesis statement? And I'll check out the chat here and see what the guesses are. Eugenigus. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but you say thesis. Actually, by talking about a general concept like a statement where we give information that's general truth, that would be a general statement. We're not quite to the thesis yet. The thesis is going to be more specific. It's going to be a main point or argument, sometimes for or against something. So let's look at a second example here. Let's listen to this, and then we'll talk more about thesis and general statement.
Number 2. Last time we were talking about ecosystems and how organisms, plant or animal, all work together in a big cycle. Today we'll continue with this idea by explaining a specific type of relationship that exists within ecosystems regarding food chains and the hierarchy of who eats who, which is called a trophic relationship. That's T-R-O-P-H-I-C, trophic. I'll use an example of marine life in this case, and we'll show how, as you can guess, the big fish eat the little fish. But of course, it's a bit more complex than that.
First listening again, because I think the audio was a little strange there at first. And I'm sorry about that. We're doing these practice ones so we can sort out all of these things so that the class, if you join, is going to be perfect and all the audio will work excellently. So I'm going to replay the first example we had once again, and we can compare it to that second example. So here is that.
Number 1. How many people here are right-handed? Well, put up your right hand if you are. Okay, that seems to follow the actual average, which says that about 90% of the population has their right hand as their dominant hand. How does being left-handed, part of that minority, affect your life? We'll take a look at how being left-handed has continued to affect people's daily lives, from inconveniences to social problems they may have. After that, we'll discuss some of the reasons why scientists believe left-handedness occurs in the first place.
All right, so hopefully you got another listen there, and that will be helpful as well for those viewers who just joined. It looks like Fetty, welcome. Good to have you here. And earlier, it looks like Anita, I believe, thought that the first one was general statement. Anita, you're correct. That's a general statement. The first listening there that we just replayed, the majority of people in the world are right-handed is a general statement. The next one, which is in an ecosystem, organisms cooperate with each other in a cycle. Again, this is more detailed information. It's not a thesis yet. It's an explanation of what the topic might be about. The listening talks about trophic relationships in a food chain. And when I think of the word trophic, which is a good academic word, again, this is English for academic purposes, trophic, I picture a small fish being eaten by a larger fish, being eaten by a larger fish. That is a trophic system where there is a food chain, we would also say. There's another example here we're going to listen to that talks about the disappearance of bees threatening agriculture. And just in case we're still learning some vocab here, before I play the listening, I'll define some of these words for you. We have the adverb recently, which means near to this time. So it's a new event, something that is new happening. Disappearance, that is when something completely is removed from an environment or a situation. I always think of a magician throwing a smoke bomb and disappearing. I could disappear right now just by, boom, disappearance. I'm gone, right? Reappearance. I'm back. That is disappearance. And bees. Bees are those animals. I'll give you an image here. Many of you probably know bees, but they are very important to our ecosystem, to pollinating plants and creating crops. So this is the bee, what we're talking about. Back to our lesson here. So the disappearance of bees is threatening. Threatening. Threaten is when you say or do or show emotion or an event that might cause harm, will probably cause harm to someone or something. That's to threaten. If you tell someone, I'm going to hit you, that would be to threaten them with violence. So never do that. It's peace only, right? And agriculture, lastly, agriculture is the production of food. So wheat or corn or any number of crops, rice, creating these crops to feed people or animals is agriculture. So let's go ahead and listen to this example once again, and we'll hear and talk about it in the chat. So feel free to ask questions, or if you want more explanation, send a message in the chat there.
Number 3. There has been a lot in the news lately about bees and the fact that they seem to be disappearing, which is a great threat to agriculture around the world. We'll discuss that in another lecture, but before we do, let's answer some basic questions about bees and what they do for us. The first question to answer is how bees assist the process of flower pollination and help plants grow. What do they give and take from the flowers themselves? A second and I think more amazing aspect is how these bees communicate. When one finds a flower, how does he tell the rest of the hive where it is?
All right. Okay. So in that listening, we heard a new topic. So I'd like to point out that all of these are different topics, but they're examples of a small part of a bigger writing sample, like an academic essay or lecture. So that's what we're practicing with today. That's what we're looking at. As we move forward onto another example, and welcome Yanina. Welcome Yanina. That's a good guess, thesis, and we'll talk more about this. We're going to look at examples so that we have examples to talk about when we start to define thesis versus general statement. So I love the input, and keep the questions coming. We have Zach in there that you can talk to, and if I miss anything, he will pass that along to me. So please ask all the questions you want. As a teacher, I love questions and answering any explanations you might want. So number 4, we're going to talk about science or sociology and biology. Sociology, anytime you see the suffix ology, it means the study of. Biology, geology. Sociology is the study of society. So things that make society run well, cultures, groups of people that live together. And biology, this is the study of life, bio. The prefix bio means life. So life and the study of, biology is the study of life. And they are 2 different subjects. So let's listen to this one, and we'll have another example to talk about in just a bit.
Number 4. Sociology and biology are 2 seemingly very separate disciplines, and it's hard to imagine studying both together, let alone taking a course with both. Yet here we are in Sociobiology 101. Welcome! I suppose the first thing we need to do before we begin our main lecture is discuss the nature of sociobiology and a bit of the history as to how it was created. Once we have that background, we'll be more prepared to look at some examples of the kinds of research and topics that sociobiologists work with.
Oh, I'm so sorry there. I had a little error. I didn't click the mic back. So you weren't able to hear what I was saying there. I'll repeat everything I just said. I said Anita had a very good question. She asked, is a thesis is not good to announce our general topic to readers or listeners. You're correct, Anita. We don't use the thesis to announce the general topic. That's the general statement. So what we do is we start with a general statement and we build up to the thesis, which will be on the same topic, but it is generally an argument or a call to action or asking someone to do something or change something. This is the thesis. This is the purpose of writing. It's not general, it's very specific, and it's usually a strong sentence. We often use modals of obligation, like must or should, to show the strength of that thesis statement. And I'll go over examples in just a moment. I will type some up for you based on these subjects. So our fifth example is talking about a lack of cleanliness and that it can cause illness in patients. A lack of cleanliness. This means no cleanliness. So early on in medicine, since earlier I let you know I used to work in medicine, it's been argued that the most important invention or just change in practice in medicine was cleanliness, washing your hands, because you can get sick if you are in the hospital and someone does not wash their hands, so it's very important. So a lack of cleanliness can cause illness in patients. And this listening will talk about how it was discovered that cleanliness is related to illness and what modern hospitals, so current new hospitals, do to make sure they can clean enough. So let's listen to this so we have another example to talk about, and then we will go over some general statements, ideas, and we will write some thesis statements as well. So let's listen to this one here.
Number 5. One of the greatest achievements in medical technology was what? Heart transplants? X-ray machines? Well, you may be surprised that one of the most important steps forward was getting physicians to wash their hands. And the fact that doctors realized the connection between germs and illness. The history of how this was discovered is quite interesting, so we'll touch on that slightly before getting into more scientific details about how modern hospitals work to ensure that everything in their environment is as clean as possible.
All right, so there's one more example for us, and we had some new viewers join in. Hi, Jose, how's it going? Hannah, glad you're here with us. Rosa, welcome back. It's good to have you here. And it looks like Yaprak, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome, happy to have you here. And it looks like we are getting some nice questions. Rosa says, is writing the thesis statement the subject of the class? For this class, we are simply describing thesis statements. And yes, we're going to write some thesis statements based on these subjects that we've listened to. We are also going to talk about general statements to introduce the general idea and talk about the difference between the two. I think I'll restate what I said in the beginning here for those of you who just joined, that a thesis statement is the most important sentence in an essay. And I'm going to say sentence. When you go on to master's degrees or you want to get a doctoral degree, sometimes a thesis can be multiple sentences or a paragraph or two. But for general purposes, if you enter a four-year university in an English-speaking school, a thesis statement will be a single sentence in your essay, a multi-paragraph essay. So yes, we're going to write some and talk about the importance of it, because without a strong thesis statement, a lecture or a presentation or an essay sort of falls apart. So it's very important that we learn how to identify what a thesis should look like, and then when it comes time to write an essay, we write a strong thesis. It's very important in academic writing. So we notice the general statement does not introduce a great deal of information. It simply prepares the reader or listener for the thesis statement. So we could make guesses about what these thesis statements are, but we don't really know what the argument is. We simply know the topic. We know what the idea is. So in example 1 up here, the idea was people being left-handed or right-handed. The majority of the people in the world are right-handed. So we can make a guess about what the writer might want to argue, what point they might want to make, but we don't know yet. We only know the general topic. The second example is about organisms cooperating with each other in an ecosystem. And we did hear trophic relationships. So it's a specific type of ecosystem, and it's a specific aspect of that ecosystem, but we still don't know what the thesis is. So all of these were general statements introducing the topic. Number 3 was about the disappearance of bees and the effect on agriculture, which, if you remember, is anytime we grow food, we grow crops like wheat or corn for feeding animals and people. So that's the general idea, but we don't yet know what the thesis statement is. Let's see here. Rosa, it looks like, has another question here. Do we use thesis statement when we speak? I thought we only use it when we write essays. That's a great question, Rosa. Thank you for that. Earlier in the stream, I had mentioned that the basic outline for an academic essay or a presentation or lecture is essentially the same. We outline them the same way. We introduce the topic in a general way, and we build up to our specific argument. And in an academic argument, we need to make a strong claim. We need to make a call to action or change or prove a point. But then we have to defend it with facts and information, real statistics or examples that can be proven. And this is to create progress in technology and any type of learning. So as we grow all over the world, I mean, everyone here listening is from many different countries, and we're all trying to collectively grow in technology, such as this live stream, which is amazing. We can have a class with students from all over the world. This happens because people are thoughtful about their information, and they use facts and ideas to grow in knowledge and progress. So it's very important that we create a strong thesis that can prove a point, and we defend it by giving information that backs up our thesis, that supports it. So that's a great question, but to answer it more succinctly, yes, we do use a thesis in speaking, in a lecture or in a presentation, but generally anyone giving a lecture or presentation has written out a plan beforehand. So they've written their thesis, they just memorized it and then speak it. So great question, thank you for that. Let's see here. Number 4 talked about sociology and biology being different fields of study, which they are. The study of society and the study of biology. And that's introducing the general topic, the general idea. We're going to talk about these two things. And you might make a guess that someone is going to write a thesis that connects those two things. If we have two things that are very different as a general statement, there must be some sort of connection later on. So that would be my guess for the thesis statement. The last one here is about the cleanliness in medicine and how that helps patients and doctors do good work. I mean, not let patients get more sick or at worst die because of simply not washing your hands. So very important. But again, a lack of cleanliness is not a thesis statement. It's a general idea, it's a concept. And we're gonna think more about it. We're gonna learn more about it in this essay or lecture. All of these are different topics, different essays or different lectures, but they're examples of general statements. So as we continue on here, all thesis statements follow a similar pattern. We use noun clauses to introduce the main ideas. And noun clauses are a form of subordinate clause. They begin with a question word, a relative pronoun, like what, why, who, or how, and often are used in reported speech. So reported speech is where you report what someone else said. For example, if Neil said, it is very important to study verbs and nouns, if I report that speech to someone else like Nicole, I would say, Neil said that it is very important to study verbs and nouns, or whatever I just said. We use those relative pronouns like question words or the words that to introduce noun clauses. So these patterns we can see right here. The listening talks about how people's lives are affected by their left-handedness. The listening talks about what trophic relationships are. The listening talks about how plants are helped by bees. Or the listening talks about what sociobiologists research and study, that combination. So these are not proper noun clauses and not questions, but it is a common pattern that you will see in academic writing. So we're going to go through a bit of an exercise here in a bit, and we're going to think about the reading and listening introductions these are the same ones we've worked on in another lesson in our main class, which you can access and join if you like. We'll give you the link for that later. But you can sign up for our closed class and get our full attention and feedback from me every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. So think about that. And because this is part of a bigger class, some of the directions in here won't pertain right now, but once you're in the closed class, they will. So if we look at this paragraph, and I'm just going to read this to you, Chinese and Western cultures existed quite independently from each other in the past, and as a result, many aspects of each have evolved such that they are quite different, especially in areas like medical systems. There are many contrasts between these two systems, but the majority involve first how patients' illnesses are viewed and diagnosed, then what subsequent forms or treatment physicians use, and what overall goals they have. So we're gonna think about this paragraph and come back to it later. So I have the exercise here for us, and we're gonna do these together. I invite you to comment and to try to do these sentences as we go. But I'll sort of type them, and if you can type them faster than me in the comments, please do. The first one is, I went out, oh, excuse me. I have the wrong document up there, I apologize. Here we are. Oop, and that is the wrong one too. Okay, let me just go back here, and we're going to type up some general statements and thesis statements for those topics we just reviewed. So let's go through them one by one. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time here to come up with what you think might be a thesis statement. Now remember, these are the general topics. So we could argue any thesis we want, and we would spend time doing research and finding information to back up our thesis statement. For example, if my general topic was freedom is very important in American culture. Now, I talked about this in the beginning. It's just a general subject, it's part of my culture, and it's very important. But this is not a thesis statement. This is a general statement. It only talks about freedom in American culture. It doesn't have a call to action or an argument that I can defend. I need a specific purpose for writing. Remember when I said if your phone is dying and you only have enough time to text message your friend one sentence before it shuts off, what would you choose to text that person based on that conversation? So if my main conversation idea is freedom, but I have one point to make, one purpose, one argument I want to have my listener or reader understand, what would that be? So this would be an example of a general statement. And to give you an example of a thesis statement, my purpose about talking about freedom might be because I want to prove the point that for political growth and change, freedom of speech is essential, and we must preserve it at all costs. I'm going to change this here to a semicolon. So this would be an example of my thesis, my main argument, the point that I want to prove. So my general statement is about freedom, but my thesis statement is more specific. It talks about a specific form of freedom. Of course, we have lots of different kinds of freedom. Freedom to walk down the street, freedom to buy a car, drive a car. There are many freedoms we have here in American culture, but I want to talk about specifically freedom of speech and how important it is. I use the modal here, must. I use the word essential. Essential we can think of like water for life. It's essential, right? So there's a lot of strong language here that proves my argument. And of course, if I'm writing an entire essay, I'll have many examples and evidence and support and quotations, but this would be one example of a possible thesis statement based on the general idea of freedom in American culture. So as we go forward, I'm going to, and it looks like, Rosa, you're left-handed. Perfect. So this is a perfect example for the first subject, which is left-handedness and right-handedness. So I'm going to copy over this general statement, and I'm going to put it right here and mark it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about what a thesis statement might be. What might you want to argue in an essay and prove with evidence and support based on this general idea? So I'll give you a couple minutes and think about it, comment in the section, and as you comment, I will go ahead and write those down on this document for you. Okay, so we're back here. We had one good suggestion for a potential thesis for this general concept, this general statement, and that came from Inglesi. Inglesi. I may be saying your name wrong, and again, feel free to correct me. Tell me how to pronounce that. But your sentence was, living in a right-handed world could be hard. Now, I like this idea. I like this argument of difficulty in a right-handed world. I might expand on this and make it a little bit stronger by changing some of the language and adding a little bit as well. I would say for a left-handed person, living in a right-handed world is hard because, and I would add information. Now, you don't have to write it exactly as I did. This is just what I came up with based on your idea. But when we say could be hard, could is not a very strong modal. It's possibility, but it's not strong possibility. It's like the second conditional. Like, it might be hard, maybe. With theses, we want them to be very strong, very direct, and we should say our point concretely and make it an imperative, something that we believe is true. So I would change that language a little bit. I would not use could. I would say is. For a left-handed person, living in a right-handed world is hard. And that is still a bit too general for a thesis statement. We would want more reason why. Because, or we could pick a specific reason why it is hard and focus simply on one reason, or we could try to tackle many reasons. But I always tell my students when they choose the topics for their essays, if it seems easy to choose a general topic, like sports or left-handedness is even fairly general, but we would want to choose something really specific. The more specific your topic is, the easier it is to write your argument. So try to choose specific topics for your essays. It will help. And it seems a little scary and like you won't have enough to write, but you can write hundreds of pages on one very, very specific topic. So make them strong statements and make them very specific in your arguments. It looks like we have a few more people here commenting. So Marianne, hi, welcome. And Thurino, I believe, welcome, hello, how are you? Your statement is, being right-handed in Africa might be the result of cultural and religious aspects. And you're right, there is cultural aspects to right and left-handedness. And that's a fascinating topic. I'd love to talk about it, but I'm gonna focus on thesis and general statement. But great comment, keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. And it looks like Kieran, welcome, hi, it's good to have you here. And it looks like, okay, so Kieran has a good comment there. So that's the reason why all manufacturing companies design their products with that fact in mind, and you're right. That would be a good argument. Many things in our world are designed for right-handed people. So if we wanted to make this argument here, this thesis statement, we could give the reason that manufacturing companies cater to right-handed people, and they do not think of left-handed people. Scissors, for example, for like cutting paper, or notebooks. If you write in a notebook, the binding is usually on the left-hand side in English-speaking countries at least, because we write from left to right, and most people are right-handed. This makes it very difficult for left-handed people. So that would be a good, specific argument to make, and you could include that in your thesis statement. So we could add that right now. We could say, for a left-handed person, living in a right-handed world is hard because manufacturers cater to right-handed people. I'm really glad you added that, and you two students working together from different countries with me have created a strong thesis statement. If a student came to me and said they wanted to write on this topic, I would be very excited to read their essay and the research that they do to prove this thesis statement. That's great. Thank you so much. Rosa points out that computer mice are for right-handed people also. These are great examples you could include in the bulk of your essay, the large part of your essay. One paragraph could be about each individual item that we use often that are designed for right-handed people. And each of those things would create difficulty in someone's life if they were left-handed. So good point, Rosa. Thank you for pointing that out. And let's see here. Yes, those are great statements also. Right and left-handed people and creativity, wonderful, but I'm going to focus again back on our arguments here for our thesis statements. Oh, I'm sorry, Thierno. I will try to pronounce your name correctly. If you want to type it phonetically, if you know what phonetic is, I will try to pronounce that correctly for you. For example, my name is Joshua, but to write it phonetically so that someone might understand how to pronounce it, I might write Joshua, right? Joshua, and that can help us. So if you want to do that, I will work at pronouncing your name correctly, because I'm glad you're here and studying with us on Smrt Live, English for academic purposes. It looks like Juan is here as well. Juan, welcome. Hi. And he says he loves the idea for English for academic purposes. Thank you. I love it too. This is such a fun class to teach, and I think it's really important for all English learners. If you want to go to university or college or simply communicate effectively in English, this is a great class. As a teacher, I feel like I get to relearn a lot all the time and keep my English good and sharp. This class is great, so thank you. I appreciate that. Trino, okay. I'll work on that pronunciation. Okay, so moving on to our second example that we talked about and listened to earlier, about a trophic ecosystem. So again, trophic is where one animal eats another animal, eats another animal. It's a food chain, we would call it. And I'm going to copy over this general statement. Again, general statements introduce the main idea, the general topic of an essay, and it's very broad. It's a big topic that is not a thesis statement. It's just an idea. It's as if you went to a friend's house and you said, you know, I'd really like to talk about sports. And then you'd have a conversation. And eventually that conversation might lead to you making a strong statement. Like, baseball is the best sport in the world. Now, most of you would probably disagree with me there. I know the world loves football, and we call it soccer here in the USA. But I could make that statement. And then you could tell me, no, football is the best sport in the world. And we could each create academic arguments about that. We could defend our opinion with facts. There are more football fans in the world than baseball fans. It's a good fact to include. So your strong statement would be your thesis statement. And that is what your whole lecture, conversation, presentation, or essay is about, is that one strong statement you make. Okay, so it looks like Sol, you're just joining us. It's okay if you're late. We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Spokane, Washington, USA. So glad you're here. Thank you for joining. And Marianne, hi there. So let's take a couple minutes and we'll think about potential thesis statements about this ecosystem. And you could use trophic in there if you like, because that was in listening. But you can create any sort of thesis you want. We don't have to write a whole essay today, but take a couple minutes and think of a thesis statement for this general statement. and we'll see what we can come up with here. So take 2 minutes and think about what might be a good thesis statement. Put it in the comments, and I will type it here for you. All right, I'm back here. So we have a couple submissions. So it looks like Inglesi, thank you for your submission there. And Kieran, also thank you for your submission. Looks like Juan has one there too. I'll add that in there for you, Juan. Okay. So thank you very much for these submissions for thesis statements. And Jose's in there as well. Thank you, Jose. Typing this here for you. And I've made just small corrections here in grammar and subject-verb agreement, so mind that. You can take a look at the comparison between my sentence and yours. But thank you so much. These are great submissions. We love questions and love you guys making comments in the chat. Thank you. It's wonderful. So let's take a look at this. Our main idea, our general statement is, in an ecosystem, organisms cooperate with each other in a cycle. So we're just talking about an ecosystem. Right? General. This is our general determiner. If it was that would be more specific, and that would be more appropriate in a thesis statement, something specific, a specific argument. So this is our general statement. And these proposed theses, you're on the right track. You're trying to become more specific. Much of this is still general. So you're building up there, but we want to get to a very strong argument. Oh, and you're welcome, Kieran. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome for the corrections on your sentence there. Happy to. I love to make corrections. And okay, we have one more submission here that I'll copy over, because thank you, Thrino, and I'll work on pronouncing your name correctly. I'll learn that. Yours is right here. Although an ecosystem may seem terrific, it is often due to the impact of the surroundings. Okay. So these are great ideas, and these would be great ideas to include in the essay. I don't quite see a thesis statement yet, though. We need something very specific, a specific argument. So let's look at the first one here. The world is the largest ecosystem to live in. I love that idea. That's such a cool concept. In my opinion, that would make a very good general statement. We want to talk about something more specific than that. So the general statement was organisms cooperating with each other. So what type of situations would organisms cooperate with each other? Where if you took one organism out, none of the others would work. One example is the bees from our lesson example. Without bees, we cannot produce agriculture. But in a trophic system where animals eat one another, if one animal is gone, and that's the food source for a different animal, then that animal will also die, and so on and so forth. So what we would want to do is choose a specific example of one of these ecosystems. There's so many ecosystems in the world. There's rainforests, and there's oceanic ecosystems, fish and plankton and sea life. We would want to try to narrow our idea down to smaller and smaller and smaller until we have one really strong argument. So that's the idea. So it's still a little bit too general, but you could continue to work on it and grow the idea until it became very specific. This top one here, I missed, I'm sorry. All organisms help to maintain the energy balance in an ecosystem. Again, you're going in the right direction, but we want to be more specific. So can you think of one example of that? Could you think of an energy balance that would not work, where it would be disrupted if the system was not complete, if it wasn't a complete system? Another example here, organisms have to cooperate if they want to survive. Again, I would love to see a specific example. Can you think of organisms that do cooperate that you're familiar with? Maybe in your home country, or something you've seen in a documentary or on television. What is one example that you might want to make an argument about? And we could also talk about the ecosystem being disrupted in other ways too, through pollution. And again, I would not encourage a student to write a whole essay on pollution because that's such a big idea. I would encourage them to write about air pollution or oil or garbage pollution in the sea. Make it more specific. And even if they said garbage pollution in the sea, I would ask them questions like, where does that garbage come from? Who is putting it there? And we would try to narrow our focus until we had one strong argument. Maybe there's one company that puts a lot of garbage in the ocean, and we want that company to stop. So we're going to come up with an academic essay that argues that that should stop. Rosa has a question here. How do I write a good thesis statement when I don't have enough information about the subject? That's a great question, Rosa. Remember earlier I said writing and reading are very closely connected. If you write something, you want someone to read it. Well, in academics, anytime you write an essay, you're going to read a lot of information. We have to find true facts and arguments and statistics or quotes to prove our point. And those facts cannot come from anywhere. We can't just Google and pick the first thing we find. We have to talk about credible sources, which is a whole nother lesson we'll talk about another day, where to find good information. But the truth is, Rosa, you're going to read a lot if you write academic essays. So if you don't have enough information, time to go to the library or talk to your teachers and do research together. And in this class, this closed English for academic purposes, we do have readings and we do have information that you will get to read and learn more about subjects as you learn to write these essays and strong thesis statements. So join the class, and I'll be happy to answer that question in more detail later on. Great question, though. Thank you for that. And keep those questions coming in the chat. We have a little bit of time left here. I'll just try to close off with these last two great suggestions. Thank you again from our students in chat. The organism cooperates to have an ecosystem balance. Also, right track. You're doing the right thing. Balance. Think of an example. Where is that balance? What type of creatures interact with each other and create a balance? And then you'll be closer to your thesis statement. And then lastly, I believe this was Jose, although an ecosystem may seem terrific, it is often due to the impact of the surroundings. So this is a perfect example of my pollution example. The surroundings, maybe there's a factory or air pollution, or a city is being built and destroying that ecosystem, and that's the reason. So you would focus in on that impact. So due to the impact of the surroundings, what is that impact? That's my question for you. What is that impact? What is creating and impact. And then you will be closer to your thesis statement. And Sol, an example from your country here. Oh, Sol, you're from Ecuador. Wonderful. Beautiful country. Yeah, and you're talking about some forms of oil pollution and exploitation of environment. So that is close to something that you could write in an academic essay. So that would be a good topic. We have to go for now. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. I really appreciate all the comments. I really hope to see you next week as well. This class will be Tuesday next week at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to get out of the lesson here really quickly, and so you can see me here. So I can thank you guys in person, big screen. Thank you so much for all your comments. It was wonderful. And like I said, we have these classes for another week or so. On the 19th, the closed class will start. We'll be teaching it right out of this studio here in Spokane, Washington, at the Spokane College of English Language. And if you tuned in late, I'm Joshua. I'll be your teacher. So you can sign up. Check out our links on the Smrt Live YouTube channel. And we're on Facebook as well. You can find me or our wonderful moderator, Zach, and send us a Facebook message. We'll add you as a friend. This has been great, and we hope to see you again next week. So thank you so much. And yeah, tune in again. Thanks, guys.